Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Adrian Zmed is one of the most recognizable faces in the entertainment industry, from film to television to Broadway. Television audiences remember him for starring roles as Officer Romano in the popular ABC series T.J. Hooker with William Shatner, as host of the popular series Dance Fever, and movie audiences will never forget his role in the cult classic movies Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer and Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. Adrian has also starred in numerous Broadway shows and national tours, including the original and revival of Grease, Chicago, Falsettos, Blood Brothers, premiere of Children of Eden. His numerous guest starring roles include appearances on Murder, She Wrote, The Love Boat Hotel, and guest starred on NBC's Passions. He also starred in many made-for-television movies like Love on the Run, Glitter, Victims for Victims, and Storm Chasers. He received an Emmy Award for his work on a children's television special. I'm really thrilled that Adrian has agreed to sit down with me today for a chat. Please welcome to the Locher Room, Adrian Zmed. Hey,
Hello,
Adrian.
Alan.
Thank you so much for being here. Did I get that all right?
Yeah, wow. That guy's done a lot of work, hasn't he? Man.
Does it tire you out when you hear all that?
Yeah. It reminds me, boy, I've done a lot. No wonder I'm so tired.
And you've done so many great things. Falsettos is such a great show. One of my faves. I mean, Grease, on top of that, but not everybody knows Falsettos,
You're right. But, Falsettos is probably one of my most... the most favorite things that I've ever really done on Broadway. The message, it was so important when we did it. And Bill Finn, who wrote it,
yeah,
this man spent a long time writing that show. He wrote it in two separate acts that premiered off Broadway. The first act was called Falsetto, and then the one was called Falsetto Land. And it was years apart that they all, and then they finally decided to tie it together and put it on Broadway. And the way I ended up in Falsettos is, I was scheduled to do the national tour, take out the first national tour of it right away. But I had to be an emergency replacement for Michael Rupert, who originated the role on Broadway. And I had to learn Falsettos, which is a 36-song opera, in 2 weeks. That was one of the biggest challenges of my life. And I'm telling you, when I opened 2 weeks later, after they told me I had to go on in 2 weeks, that was one of the most remarkable accomplishments I've ever made. I mean, it's one thing to do a musical with a lot of dialogue in it, but it's another thing to do an opera, when there's no dialogue.
30 what? 30 what? 36. How many songs?
I'm pretty sure it was 36. Yeah.
I had seen it originally when it was probably what you said. Which was the first? March of the Falsettos?
Yes, March of the Falsettos, and then Falsetto Land. Yeah.
Right. I might have seen both of those originally, and then saw the recent Falsettos.
Oh, the recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, the recent one that they
revival.
Did.
Yeah.
The music is spectacular.
It's incredible. Yeah. And it's just it's a show that just takes you on a journey. It's the first half is so funny and wonderful. And then the second half really is very sobering and really makes you understand what happened in the 80s. And I was in my heyday myself in the 80s.
Yes, you were. We're gonna get to all of that.
Yeah. Anyway, I loved Falsettos dearly, but I've had a wonderful, grateful career. Doing. I say that Grease is my life.
It really is.
I started my life doing Grease as Danny in the original version, and then I did after I left. I started in the national tour. Then I did it on Broadway. Then I went to Hollywood. But then I did some tours in the 80s, and then I did the Tommy Tune revival in the 90s for about 6 years.
And I think I heard you say that you are probably the only or the actor who has played Danny Zuko the most.
Yep. I have played Danny Zuko in 3 decades. I was a high school kid.
What an iconic character.
I just was texting with Jim Jacobs, who wrote Grease along with Warren Casey, and we're very dear old friends. We're both from Chicago, which is kind of like where this show was based out of. Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey went to a high school called Taft High School in Chicago, and it's about this group of guys and girls who went to that school. And I talk to him all the time about we're rabid Cub fans and all, but he calls me Robo Zuko.
Yeah.
I pretty much. I have, because I've done it in 3 decades, but when I did it in the Tommy Tune revival, I never missed a show. So he just kind of like called me Robo Zuko, and that's become my nickname.
That is a great. You need it on a jacket.
No. Now they call me Daddy Zuko, is what they call me.
Oh, that's funny. So take me back. What was your childhood like growing up in Chicago? You were the youngest of 3 boys, right?
Yeah. I had a unique life. My father was a Romanian Orthodox priest. Orthodox priests can get married. So I grew up pretty much in the church. The parish house is right next to the church, and I started God bless my brothers. They couldn't sing. So my father, I could always naturally sing. He literally taught me. I became the youngest cantor in the Romanian Orthodox, Orthodox churches in the country. I was 5 years old when I was in the pulpit singing the Gregorian chants, to some of the services and stuff. So my father they're not written down. They're all by ear. And they have to be taught. So I kind of had music in my system since I was a kid. Then he made me play the organ too in church and things like that. So I grew up in the church, and it's kind of tough when your father is your father, and you have to go to confession to your father.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a tough one. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest lesson you learned from your dad is?
Wow. Probably the biggest lesson I learned from him was working hard at what you do. If he said to me that success is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. And I saw how hard he worked constantly for the church, not only as to do his services and everything, but he did he put the choir together himself. He taught the choir. He put out the church bulletin, the newspaper. He would do wonderful banquets and folk dances, the Romanian folk dances and stuff. My father wanted to be an actor, but he became a priest instead. I think
that's something I really have not heard.
Yeah,
somebody wanting to be an actor and they became a priest instead.
Yeah, and the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox service, there's very few sermons. Only on holidays are there sermons. So the entire ceremony is sung. All these Gregorian chants and stuff. So when I would go to church when I was a kid, I discovered this in one of my first PR interviews when I was doing the first Grease. I slipped and I said, yeah, when I would go to church on Sunday and see my father on stage, I mean, in the altar, and it was like a performance every Sunday, and he geared up for it every Sunday. He had to keep his voice in shape and all, because he had to sing the whole service and stuff. So I probably was taught that the most from my father, and that was hard work. And I get a lot of my talent from my father, and I get all of the other good stuff from my mom, and how she put up with being the wife of the minister of the church and stuff. And basically, we were the first family of what now actually that church. My father and mother have passed away several years at this point, but that church in Chicago has the largest Romanian population, largest congregation in the United States right now. So they came from Romania back in the early 50s, as one of the first families to come out of a communist bloc country legally. And it was all done through politics and everything, because the minister was an old minister at that church, and he passed away. And everybody in the congregation mainly spoke Romanian, so they needed a Romanian priest to come in and take over. There weren't any in the United States that were available. So my grandfather was already here, and he kind of worked his political things, and they got him to the family to come out legally. And they were it was like a big deal in Chicago, actually, when this first family with 2 sons, and I wasn't one of them, those were my brothers, came to America legally, and he became the minister, for that church and stuff. So it was
How long did he do it for?
Oh God,
long time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. It's a really good question. It's exactly how many years, but they landed here in the 52, I think it was. They came, and he continued doing it well into the 90s.
Wow.
So he did it for over 40 years. Yeah,
wow, that's incredible.
Huh.
Yeah, and as a child, you were a big sports fan, big football player, correct?
Yeah, my father wanted me to become a priest, but I had other ideas.
And football was that idea. It wasn't acting at first, right?
It was. I really was very much into sports as a kid, and in high school I was a pretty good football player, and I was being scouted by Notre Dame to have a scholarship and everything, and I broke my leg very, very badly. And I went through a series of operations to actually save the leg. It was a compound fracture. It was just horrible. And that was it. My sports career was over, and I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life at that point, because I was pretty much set at that point. And as you know, I could always sing. And I remember I went to an all-guy high school in Chicago. It was called Lane Tech, and we had a great football team because it was all guys, the whole school and everything. But that was that. So there was an English teacher who decided that she wanted to do musicals at Lane Tech, and they would import all of the girls from all of the Catholic high schools that were all girls. And I heard that that she announced it. She was my English teacher, so she announced it in class. They were doing auditions for it, and I thought, well, they're bringing in the girls from I hardly ever meet girls. This is a great way to meet girls, I figured. So I auditioned, and I could sing. I sang the Star Spangled Banner, and that was that. And the funny thing about it is I started doing it because I wanted to meet girls, but the second the curtain went up, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was that. I knew at that moment. And then I went to the Goodman School of Drama in Chicago, which is now a school of DePaul University, and all. And I don't know, I've been blessed my whole life. I've been doing
ever since.
And ever since. Yeah.
It is a common thread with many actors I speak to, that it is the female species that encourages the men to try out, and they find their passion. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's whatever leads you to that passion is what's really important, and you've had a career ever since. So bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
But the other funny thing about it is I was also on the gymnastics team when I broke my leg, and the gymnastics teacher was choreographed our musicals. And he was kind of like there for me go throughout this whole thing with my leg and how bad it was and how many operations I had to go through. And he suggested that I go to dance classes, to ballet classes, to rehabilitate my knee, my leg. And at that point, my leg was a little shorter than the other one, so I was having a lot of trouble balancing myself. And I did go to some dance classes, and I have to say that it helped me throughout my entire career, because I learned how to it's really funny. I end up doing musicals for the next 40 something years after that, on a leg that I shouldn't be dancing on, that the doctor said I would never ever do sports again or anything that's that physical ever again. But I learned how to turn on my left. I broke my right leg. It was actually a femur break is what it was. I learned how to turn on my left, how to land on my left. I did everything on my left leg for my whole career up until about 5 years ago. I tore the ACL on the good leg. And then the meniscus, and the next show I did, and another part of the meniscus. Consequently, after 40 something years, you know what I did in the pandemic? I got 2 new knees.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I've had 2 hip replacements, and all I've kept hearing is knees are a lot harder. Was it hard?
I also had to do the hip first. The doctor said, well, before we start doing these knees, you can't rehabilitate unless you fix that one of your hips at this point, or else you won't. And I had no idea I had a hip problem. I only knew I had knee problems. And I just did La Cage aux Folles in the United Kingdom just before it ended, just before the pandemic hit, the lockdown. And I was still dancing on 2 really bad knees. And I would just wrap it in tape and stuff for every show, and just take about 5 Advil and tough it through every show that I did. But I decided that since the pandemic was doing what it was doing, it was time to change the tires.
And how are they doing today?
Pretty good, actually. I did the second one about 3 months ago, and I'm actually walking now for the first time since I was a teenager without pain. So I'm.
God bless that gymnastics teacher for really suggesting you take dance.
Yeah.
I mean,
it really kept me going. It helped me, and I managed to have a career, and I never should have, in musical theater. But I also had a career in television and film too. So I didn't dance all of those years, but
right. But you danced quite a bit for sure.
Yeah,
you definitely were. And your first major role was playing Danny in the National Touring Company of Greece. What do you remember about getting that role for the first time and being on the road with the show?
I couldn't believe it, honestly. All I ever wanted to do, I never thought that I would really be a working actor, that actually made a complete living with it. In fact, I was getting so discouraged in my last year at the Goodman School of Drama, auditioning for Equity Productions in Chicago, that I decided that my father never really wanted me to be an actor. So I said, well, maybe he was right. I need to do something else to fall back on, because my passion is this acting thing, but maybe I can just act in a production here, a production there, but I really need a 9-to-5 job to get things going. So I decided that I was going to go to architecture school, which is actually, I studied, I went to a technical high school. That's what Lane Tech was. And I learned architecture for 4 years. So that was another one of my passions. So I was enrolled to go into architecture school at the University of Illinois just before I got Greece. And I was bartending on Rush Street in Chicago to put myself through school and everything. And a lady who saw a lot of productions that I did at the Goodman, she was helping the Greece people cast the second national tour. And they were down to the wire to get a Danny Zuko. In fact, it was like about a week or so away from when they were in production, that they were going to go into production in New York. And I said, oh, wow, I kind of have set myself up for architecture school right now. And he said, please just come in and audition really quickly and everything. I said, well, what the hell? It'll be my last hurrah. I'll just go in during, and leave and see what happens. Well, went in and I didn't even think about the audition and all. And the next thing I knew, they were calling me about 3 hours later saying that I have to fly to somewhere in Massachusetts to see the director. And I go, oh my God, really? Well, here was my little complication. I was about to get, I was literally about to get married.
Jeez. School,
And now,
marriage.
right. And it was a really crazy thing. And am I going to go to architecture school? What's going to happen with Greece? So I went to meet with the director, and it was quite an adventure in itself, because I had never been on an airplane before. At that time. That was terrifying, just to get to the director and all. I get it. I find out the next day that well, actually, no, it wasn't the next day. We had gotten married that weekend, then went on our honeymoon, and I found out on our honeymoon that I got Danny. And I was supposed to be in New York a week later on Monday. And I suddenly said to my wife then, our life is going to change a lot right now, if you're okay with it and all. And thank God she was willing to go along with the whole, adventure. And literally a week later, we were in New York, and there's it's called the Paramount Hotel right now.
I think yeah, 46
Paramount.
46, right off 8th
Avenue. Right off 46. So we stayed at the Paramount, and right across the street, we were rehearsing at the Minskoff and all. And about a month later, we were at the Paper Mill Playhouse. Out
here in New Jersey.
Opening that second national tour, and the rest is history. I was doing Danny Zuko for 3 or 4 years of the original. Then yeah.
And
so
it
was
you did it on Broadway with the revival in '95.
Well, no. Then I went to Broadway with the during the original too. I had left.
Okay.
Yeah. I did the tour a few years, and then I went to Broadway to do it for a while, and then I wanted to stay.
What's that like?
Again, I couldn't believe right out of acting school that I got the lead in the biggest musical at the time on Broadway, and then I in a tour, and then I go and am starring in it on Broadway. It was truly the most exciting thing I could ever possibly dream of that was going on. To do a Broadway show, it's better than, it's the ultimate high. It's better than any drug or alcohol you'll ever have to make you feel good. It is. And I call it, again, here's the preacher's kid talking. It's like communion. It's like communion. You give to the audience, and then the audience gives back to you. And it's just a big give and take and give and take. And it's a dance that you have with this audience. And you feel so good at the end of those 2.5 hours that it's just almost like a religious experience when you're in a great show like that.
And it really was not a small role.
No,
the lead, the lead male character, so bravo. That's incredible.
It was a trip, and it was the most exciting thing. And then obviously, I was hooked for life, because of what had just happened. And my manager at the time had handled very wisely. He signed all of the guys who played Danny Zuko in that original production, from whether it was the Broadway show, whether it was the national tour. So he handled Barry Bostwick, who originated the role of Danny, and he handled Jeff Conaway, who was Barry Bostwick's understudy, and then he also handled a guy by the name of John Travolta. And he had a stable. He was known as the manager who had all of the Danny Zuko's, and who all went on to have incredible careers in television and film.
What's his name?
Bob Lamond. Bob Lamond and his partner Lois Zetter. It was called Lamond Zetter, the management company. They were the greatest managers on the face of the earth, and they were like my parents. Because they, like I said, my dad wasn't crazy about me being an actor. Now I'll tell you the story of how I won him over and everything. But Bob wanted me to leave Broadway, and I had just been offered Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Another great show.
And I wanted to stay and do it. And he says, Adrian, your time is now in LA, in Hollywood. And I've fought him on it until I broke down. He said to me, they were very wise words: Broadway will always be here for you. Hollywood will not. Go now. This is your time. And he was right. I had a magnificent career, and still do, television and film in Hollywood. But I went back 10 years later and did a huge body of work, for the next 20 years after 20 to 30 years after that, and stuff. So yeah, it all did work out, and he orchestrated my career too. But awesome. So much of it, he says you have to be in talent. It's about talent being in the right place at the right time.
Correct.
In the business, you just have to be ready for it, and all. Let me tell you the story about how I won my father over. Finally,
yeah, please.
It was that national tour of Greece, the first one that I did, and we were playing a huge playhouse in Chicago that we never ever should have been playing. It was a 5,000 seat opera house. It was the Civic Light Opera in Chicago. So they knew we were never going to fill that place. So the company manager knew that my father was a priest and had a huge congregation of people. And he said, tell you what, tell your dad to invite everybody in the congregation to our opening night in Chicago. So I had, it was a huge congregation, about 500 to 800, families, that were there. So every moment I stepped on stage, there was this Romanian cheer coming up from the audience constantly. And that night, my father said, "Okay, maybe it's okay that you are actor, but I hope you still make money, doing this,
That's great.
So that's
just the fact that he got to see you do it is amazing.
Oh God, so much. When I set up the Hollywood, when I got TJ Hooker, that was really I had done 2 series before that, and they never quite hit that. We would do 13 episodes, and then they would only air 5 or 6 of them and stuff like that. But when Hooker hit, he was able to see that show, and he goes, You work for 1 hour each week. What you do rest of the time?"
You need to explain the TV magic.
I was like, okay, you and my mom are gonna come and visit, and I'll show you how exactly how it's all done. And when he saw that I was at work, 13 hours a day, 5 days a week, and 7 days shooting days of Hooker. He said, "Oh, it's so much work now. I understand, But
that's great. But your first TV debut was Starsky and Hutch. Do I have that right? Was that your first TV gig? An episode?
No. Actually, it was a series called Flatbush. When I left Broadway in December. Literally, the second week of January, I got a pilot, and it was called Flatbush, and it was a spin-off of Saturday Night Fever, because it had just Saturday Night Fever had just been a massive, huge hit, and I was starting to become the poor man's John Travolta in LA at that time, and they always needed guys who could dance. And we're Italian looking and stuff, and that's what this whole thing was about. It was a gang of guys from Flatbush, in the Flatbush area of New York, and we shot about 13 episodes of that show, and that was really. And we were on the air for about five episodes of it, but it just never quite hit because Lorimar Productions were producing it, and they at that time they had a big hit called Dallas on the air, and they were venturing off into something new that they had never really done, and they didn't know whether they wanted it to be a kind of a light comedy or they wanted it to be a serious gang kind of a thing. So we didn't know what animal we were as we were shooting it, and that was probably our demise. But then after that was canceled, I think my first guest spot was Starsky and Hutch. And I played one of the greatest roles I've ever had, a disco dancing pickpocket killer.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. A complex layer. Like, am I a dancer? Am I a pickpocket? Or am I a killer?
I mean, disco is in your blood. I mean, that's crazy. That's wild. And then in 1982, you landed Officer Vince Romano.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing about the role, the audition, any of that, the screen test?
Actually, I was requested because of that guest starring role on Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, wow. That was ABC as well, right?
Starsky it was ABC, and it was an Aaron Spelling production, so was Starsky and Hutch. And they were putting together this show called The Protectors. The pilot was a 2-hour TV movie pilot, is what it was. And Bill was the sergeant who was the instructor of all of these rookie cops at the police academy in LA. And the pilot was about 10 rookie cops. And I was just one of the cops. Well, between the pilot and when we were picked up, it was just me that ended up doing the series with him in a squad car and all. And that was another one of those things where, how did this happen? How did I end up starring opposite William Shatner after I did this TV movie with them? It just, again, I'm grateful. I've been blessed my whole life to be in the right place at the right time.
Right time. You've described William Shatner as a mentor. Can you describe what you mean?
Well, actually, just watching Bill at that time, was an experience in itself for me, because I'm a young actor. I'm out of a classically trained acting school, and I want to cure cancer with my acting, So everything was intense. Everything was I was just intense about everything. And Bill just he was relaxed all the time in everything that he always did. And by osmosis, I learned, okay, I don't have to hit a home run with absolutely everything that is coming out of my mouth with intensity and stuff like that. It's nice to have colors in your performance. So many times, especially in a close-up, watching him in a close-up, it was really quite remarkable to see how concentrated he was in a monologue. And he never blinked because he was so concentrated. I teach master classes at Stella Adler right now on transferring your theater technique to film. And I always say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And if you're completely concentrated and you're into this character and you are that character, you hardly ever blink on camera. And blinking is very distracting because the camera's right here. It's right here on your eyes,
right.
And also facial expressions and things like that. It's a whole different animal. You're not using your body and stuff. So I learned a lot of camera technique, from Bill. But he was also a great, mentor in saying, Adrian, you're making a lot of money right now. Be wise with it. And he told me the stories of the tough times he went through with things. And, when I wanted to suddenly buy a Corvette and then buy a big old, house in the Hollywood Hills and stuff like that, he said, easy. He was a pretty cool guy. And
those are great lessons for somebody, your age when you get, absolutely.
Yeah. And to this day, we're still quite close friends.
He seems just like Cool Bill.
The other thing about Bill is that he's a practical joker. He does like to have fun off camera, and we had a really good time in those 5 years, just cracking each other up and all. We had this. There were a lot of shots of the two of us in the squad car. A lot of shots. Dialogue, whatever, and then all of a sudden we get a dispatch saying shots fired at blah blah blah, and then I pick it up, got 4 out of 30, we're on it, and we ended up getting so good at doing those car shots that they originated as what we called in the business tow shots. We were literally towed by a big truck,
Right. Yeah.
a flatbed truck, and the entire crew was on the back of that flatbed with the camera and lights and everything. And we were being towed, and Bill never really drove the car, or when I drove once in a while, we were never really driving it, and we were just being photographed the whole time as we were doing this. And we just, some directors had some ideas to say, hey, what if we just mount the cameras on the car and the lights on the car, just have you guys drive it, but we'll be in the truck without towing you and stuff like that, and we'll hear on the microphones how it's going, and also see what's happening in there. So we started doing it that way then, after maybe a year 2 or so, and then we got so ridiculously crazy good at it. We literally took like 5 episodes of the tow shots, of our car shots, and pasted all of the dialogue on the dashboard. And Bill and I took the car with 2 motor cops and left while they were at lunch. And we would be gone for like an hour to 2 hours, driving the streets of Los Angeles, doing all of those shots. And I would have the sound and the lighting switches in my lap. I'd turn everything on. We'd go, okay, this is show 57, scene 24, take 1. And then we would do a high five to do the clappers. and then we'd do the shots. And then we'd turn the camera off when we thought we got it. And then we'd go on to the next one. And that's how we did the car shots for the last 2 years, pretty much, of TJ Hooker. And then we would do things that would surprise them in dailies. You know what the dailies are? It's the stuff that you shot the day before, and the producers and the directors get, see the stuff that you did. And we would pick up people on the street and put them in the back of the car, and do our own little one-act plays and stuff like that. And at a certain point, Aaron said, "Stop screwing around and just get the job done." Okay. So we just.
When you think back to TJ, what's the best part for you? Best part of that experience?
It was a family. Of course, to be fortunate enough to be I had already done 2 series that I thought were going to be big hits, and they weren't. And that was the norm back then. Boy, how times have changed, Alan. Back then, ABC, CBS, NBC would do 30 pilots each year, at pilot season, and maybe 4 or 5 of them were picked up and then infused into their programming and stuff like that. So it was very rare that you were lucky enough to get into a show that would be picked up, and then after that, be on the air for 5 years, like we were on the air for 5 years. And you truly become a family with the crew and the cast members and stuff. And it's just a camaraderie that you have. And, to this day, many of those people are still friends. We Zoom, we phone calls, we
That's
send
awesome.
pictures of our kids and all that stuff and all. But it was the family, and it's heartbreaking, when it's over, because you're literally 13 hours a day for 5 years the whole time. But show business is show business. You move on, and then you move on to the next thing. It's I experienced that with all of the Broadway shows that I've done.
Yeah, you become a family, and
crazy thing too. That's a whole different bondingness that you get, because you're, especially on tour, you're living with those actors and the crew. You are staying in the same hotels, and even after a year or 2 being on tour, you say, "Okay, I'm just gonna go someplace. I don't want to see anybody, from the show right now." And everybody has that idea, and you always end up going to a restaurant that you didn't think anybody would find, and we're all there.
Having drinks after the show, Joe Allen's or something like that.
You live with those people, even when you weren't at work all the time. So it's a whole different kind of family that you have with that, and especially in the Grease world. I have a group of original Greasers.
I want you to talk about that for sure. You shot the pilot for TJ and then did Grease 2. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
I was on hold with Hooker, and I was not allowed to shoot any other TV shows at the time. So I was looking for film at the time, and it just, again, right place, right time. I was fortunate that Pat Birch, who choreographed the original Grease and choreographed the movie, choreographed the original Grease on Broadway and choreographed the movie, the first movie, and she was directing it. And she, of course, knew me, and because she, choreographed me and Grease and stuff. And I had just done T.J. Hooker at the time, and she was directing that. She really, really wanted me to be Johnny in Grease 2, because she knew that I was right now at that point the only one who had done the Broadway show, and she wanted me to help out with the T-Birds and to bring the essence of what that we had in the Broadway show with it. And Maxwell Caulfield and Michelle Pfeiffer had already been cast, and they were not big stars at that time. I think Michelle had just did a movie with Tony Danza called The Hollywood Nights, and I'm not even sure that it was out at the time. And Maxwell had just done something on Broadway and stuff. So they wanted a rock star to play Johnny. And that's who Robert Stigwood and Alan Carr wanted. They were the producers. Mm-hmm. And Pat strategically, always, whenever they auditioned the rock star, I would come in right after the rock star and re-audition. And they said, all right, Adrian's still the front runner. He's still the front runner. Okay, who else do we have to bring in? I had 10 callbacks to play Johnny, and I went through, some of the rock stars I didn't see, some of them I did come in and out, but I was in a different room and stuff like that. And I in the end, I managed for them to say, all right, he's got it. Just let's move on. Let's start shooting.
What did you want it bad? Like, when Pat mentioned this role? Yeah,
because I was putting my Danny Zuko on film, basically, is what it was. And you don't get to do that. You do the Broadway show and you play that character. You don't get to do a movie to put that character. Okay, he was Johnny, but he was, in essence, 80% of my Danny and everything. My Danny was a little tougher on Broadway because of who Johnny was. Johnny was a slightly different, character. He always thought he was cool, but he had vulnerability.
Very Danny. I mean, there's
but he had vulnerability to him. As cool as he thought he was, he things that didn't go always his way. So that's why I wanted to do it, because I could put my Danny on, and of course then it was a blast to be back and doing a Grease again, and all, and it was great to work with that group of people, and it was actually like being back in high school, because we shot at the same high school, which was, we were in Norwalk. It was Norwalk High School. No, Excelsior High School was the high school in Norwalk that they shot the first Grease and then the second Grease. And we pretty much lived at that high school. We had all the trailers were in the parking lot, and we literally had our movie lunch in the cafeteria. They showed dailies in the theater. And we had lockers. We had our own lockers at the school and stuff. So it was like going back to high school, those few months that we shot Grease.
Well, when the movie came out, you went on the road to do press for the movie. And I know the gentleman who took you on tour. He was my boss when I worked in the movie division. Wow. Michael Scrimenti. I don't know if you remember that name.
Yes. Absolutely, Michael Scrimenti.
Michael left me a message last week when he saw that you and I were doing this, and he said, "You'll never believe this, but I went on the road with Adrian for Grease 2."
Yeah. And it was a blast. I mean, Ellen, it was a dream. So many dreams come true came in my life with everything I did with Hooker, with Broadway, and then the movie Grease 2. Alan Carr was also from Chicago, one of our producers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he said, Adrian, what theater would you like Grease 2 to premiere in Chicago? And I was blown away.
That's a dream. That's a dream right there.
I was blown away that this, that he was even asking me and everything. And I said, how do you feel about the Biograph Theater, which was 4 blocks from my house on Lincoln Avenue, which is in the center of the theater district of Chicago. Lincoln Avenue and Halsted right there is the theater district of Chicago. And I went to that theater as a kid and on Saturday mornings and saw triple features my whole life. And that's where we premiered Grease 2. And it was one of the biggest thrills of my life to have my parents sitting in the audience at the premiere at the Biograph Theater in our neighborhood that I grew up in and walked to and stuff. It was just
that's definitely a pinch me moment.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I have a picture of my parents and I sitting in the theater of that moment on my walls. It was just quite a. You're reminding me about all these incredible things. Actually,
when did you realize the film had hit cult status?
It was really a lot of people think that Grease didn't do well in the box office. It made $80 million at that time. It didn't make the 180 million that Grease one did, but that was a lot of it had to do with the fact that John and Melissa weren't in it. Yeah,
right,
that was
80 million at that time is a great opening.
Right, but it still was what it had a stigma about it because it wasn't as big a hit as what Grease was. And then the video generation started. And kids discovered Grease 2. To this day, I have children come up to me and the parents and everything, and they're singing Score Tonight. They're singing Prowlin'. It's become a cult, and I'll tell you why. It is more kid-friendly than Grease 1. And also it captures the essence of what the Broadway show was better than Grease 1. Grease 1 was a terrific movie, well directed and incredibly done with John and Olivia, but it became a vehicle for John and Olivia.
Right.
It was really about John and Olivia, Danny and Sandy. Whereas the Broadway show was about the T-Birds and the Pink Ladies.
Pink Ladies, yeah.
Most everybody in the show has their own song. And, Grease Lightning is Kanicki's song. It's his car.
Right.
So
yeah.
A lot of the characters in Grease 2 had their own songs. And, so and a lot of the dialogue was geared towards them having their own life. There was that great couple with Maureen Teefy and Peter Frechette. Do it for your country. There were just so many moments like that everybody had their pair, the couples and stuff like that. And I think that's what captured the essence of what Grease on Broadway was. It was about being in high school and wanting to be in love and finding your puppy love. Is what
I love how you say, everybody comes up to you and sings. Even people, when I started posting this, I would get texts from friends who were sending me lyrics to all the songs. And Michelle, one of our fans, just said, "Look, I want to be a Cool Rider."
I remember when we shot Cool Rider, Pat, one of the great talents of Pat Birch, the director and choreographer, is that she was able to take what made you look good even better. She would not put choreography on you that you couldn't do. She did stuff that worked for you, and she did that.
You mean for each person's dance ability?
Yes.
Gotcha.
She gave. Michelle was terribly nervous about that number, because Michelle did not do musical theater. Right. She didn't do any musical theater. She was not a dancer. She wasn't really a singer and stuff. And Pat gave her the confidence by using that. She would just work with her, say, okay, well, just dance with me. Here's the music. We're going on. See, yeah, do more of that. Do more of that. Now, put your arms up and do that, and shake your hands this way, and then hop. And she transformed her into a dancer that she was comfortable with, and all. And it was really cool to watch that happen. And Cool Rider, when I saw it being done, filmed, I said, oh, this is going to be a pretty cool number. I think a lot of little girls and a lot of little boys are going to want to be her, and a lot of little boys are going to want to be with Stephanie and stuff after this. And it was a pretty hot number. Yeah.
Is that your favorite number?
Well, for me, it's probably Score Tonight. No, it's Prowlin. Because I got to tell you the story about Prowlin. Score
Go
Tonight.
back to Score Tonight. Do you still have the bowling ball, I believe?
Yes, I do. It's in the garage.
That's amazing. I love that. And your names are in it, you said, right?
Yes.
Your names are in it?
Johnny Inagarelli. Yeah, it's right on the ball. In fact, I just went bowling last week with a friend. And I used my Johnny Inagarelli bowling ball.
You better be careful with that one. People would.
Yeah, I know.
People would want that.
I did a really fun thing here. I live in Vegas, and there's the Brooklyn Bowl in Brooklyn. The venue. Yeah. But there's a Brooklyn Bowl here, and a few years ago, the guy who runs all the shows that go into Brooklyn Bowl said, "Hey, what do you think of us airing Grease 2? And you coming, while it's being aired?" And we aired it, and I had a microphone and had a button to stop the movie as people were bowling, and the movie was airing all over Brooklyn Bowl, and I would stop the movie, and I'd say, okay, I want you guys to watch this next scene. Watch when we're being brought into the swimming pool on that big barge and stuff, and all. Well, now look at Matt Latanzi's face as we're going in. It was 40 freaking degrees out there while we were shooting it, and it was 4:00 in the morning, and those poor guys were freezing going into cold water. It was not heated at all, because it would have steamed if it was heated. And it was really fun, to do that and tell stories about all the behind.
You were going to say something about Prowlin before I forget.
It almost never made it into the movie because we were behind shooting in our shooting schedule. They were going to say, we've got to end this thing in 2 weeks, and we got to start cutting things. And they were just going to have Prowlin as for about 20 seconds in the talent show, doing the end of Prowling in the talent show. Okay. And then we were going to hear it, occasionally as we were rehearsing it occasionally. And we were never actually going to film the entire number. And when we went into the studio to record it, before we filmed it, that's how it's done. You record it, and then you do it to playback as you're doing it.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh wow, we have to shoot this. This is like one of the best songs in the show. We have to figure out a way." And Pat came up with a way to do it in 24 hours. And it was just insane how we did it. She said, "We're doing something in the auditorium. When we're finished with that scene, we can shoot you part of what we're going to shoot on the stage. And then what we're going to do is that tomorrow we're going to be at the gas station, and we can shoot the beginning part of Prowlin' then." So we literally got no sleep whatsoever in those 24 hours, and we managed to pull it off in like a 24-hour period to shoot it, and which was unheard of. It took us 4 weeks to shoot. 3 weeks to shoot Score Tonight because of the bowling alley and how many people there were, and to do something like that in one night. And it made it into the movie because, we kind of all pitched in and knew what we had to do to make it work. It was really cool.
Wow.
That was exciting.
One of our viewers, Michael Howland, sent me a note that said, "I actually used to sneak downstairs and watch Grease 2 as a kid. I couldn't get enough of this show. Johnny was the epitome of coolness. Your confidence and swagger in that role was so strong, and your vocals were incredible. And that high note in Score Tonight, forget about it." he had
My sons can do that high note now.
Wow. And he said, my grandfather used to sing Cool Rider to myself and my sibling and try to embarrass us.
That's a great story. I do get a lot of that. I get
bet
so much
you do.
Yeah,
I
do. Yeah.
When was there a moment when you realized, and I'm gonna put up a picture that probably embarrassed you, that you realized you were a teen idol? Take a look at this. Is from a fan. Cassie said, I just want to share my poster I've had since I was a kid. I rediscovered it about 15 years ago, and it's been on the inside of my walk-in closet since. Was there a moment you realized that you were a teen idol?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, again, you have to remember earlier what I said. All I wanted to be was an actor. That's all I wanted to do. And I didn't want to, be a teeny bopper idol or anything like that. Right. But again, my manager was very wise. He said, Adrian, trust me, do this, and you will get the roles you want. Because they had something called a TVQ back in the day.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and that was your rating as to how popular you were and stuff like that. And he said, do these. I know it's not classical acting or, doing a poster in a towel is not, what you want it to do, but trust me, you will get the roles that you want. And he was right. Yeah. Almost every hiatus, I did things that I wanted to do as an actor.
That's
stuff. But I did do a lot of stuff for the Teen Beat, Tiger Beat, all those, things.
Yeah. And one of your other fans, Dwight, says, Adrian, thank you so much for all the wonderful work you have done. Stay cool, stay well, stay safe, stay strong. Dwight has been asking for you on this for a long time.
Thank you, Dwight. I appreciate you thinking of me, Dwight. Thank you.
One cult classic is cool enough to be a part of, and then you're part of another one, with a young actor named Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
Bachelor Party.
Yeah, another show I did on the hiatus of Hooker. That's another one where the stories I can tell you about the stuff that never made it in the movie because we would have had an X rating.
Yeah, I heard you say that in an interview. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. But, a lot of the things that we did actually are being done in movies now. And they're R-rated.
Oh, for sure.
Back then in the 80s, you couldn't do some of those things. But yes, it's funny. I get little kids coming up to me and grown-ups who are fans of Grease 2, and sing the songs to me and stuff like that. But then I get drunken college guys who come up to me and say, come on, Adrian, say the line, And it's the one line they always want me to say is, hey, look at the cans on that bimbo.
That sounds like a college guy.
Yeah. Honestly, Bachelor Party. Tom and I were already friends because I had just done a guest spot on Bosom Buddies at the time, and we lived very close to each other. So we carpooled to work every morning, and we would joke a lot, saying, all we're doing is goofing around on camera for 13 hours a day. Our careers are over. This is never going to be anything. This is going to be a piece of junk. And when we saw the screening, we looked at each other and said, what happened? This is funny. We just ad-libbed a lot. We just ad-libbed and did a lot of crazy, wacky stuff. And we said to the director, can we try this? Can we try that? And it turned out really quite incredible. And it is to this day another cult classic. So it's again, I was in the right place at the right time. That's
crazy. And then, taking over for Danny Terrio, tell me, when I assume your agent or your manager came to you with that, what was your first, thought?
Well, I had actually been a host, not a host, a judge on Dance Fever. So the producers kind of knew everything, my career and everything. And I guess they were gonna get rid of Denny for whatever reasons they had at the time. So they were in a frantic,
search
frenzy
for a new,
to find somebody who could dance in Hollywood and host it. And there weren't a lot of people who could dance and do the kind of stuff like that. And Hooker was just canceled, literally. And when they heard that it was canceled, the week that they heard that it was canceled, and my heart was broken that we were canceled.
I'm sure, yeah.
I got the offer. I literally got the offer from Merv Griffin, basically. He was, you know,
he produced it, right?
Of Dance Fever, yeah. And I said, oh my God, I get to host a show and dance in Hollywood? I don't have to go to Broadway to do it or go into a national tour and stuff like that? Okay, I'll do it. And I accepted it and the contract, and that was that. And a lot of people thought that I left TJ Hooker in the last 10 episodes. It was like, we needed 10 more episodes to complete a 5-year complete package for syndication. Apparently there's like this magic number in syndication that's supposed to have a certain amount of shows. And they made a deal with CBS to do a late night version for 10 episodes of Hooker to complete that syndication package. And I was not able to do both at the same time. So that was a very strange time for me, knowing that Hooker was then 2 months later was going to continue on to do those 10 episodes. And I was then in the middle of starting to do Dance Fever at the time and couldn't do Hooker. But I could have probably pulled it off doing both at the same time, but it was just in my contract that I could not do the both. And a lot of people think that I left Hooker in that last half season because we used to do 26 episodes a year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, now there's like 10, right?
You're lucky if you get like 13 or 12 or 13 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Was Dance Fever fun for you? I mean, it must have been, since you love to dance.
We would shoot 5 episodes a weekend, and it was a blast. It was like a party for all weekend. And how, once again, lucky is a guy to dance with 4 girls in their underwear behind you, you know? So,
can't be that bad, right? Can't be that bad.
It was a dirty job, but somebody had to do it, you know?
Somebody had to. Well, that's how it goes. Tell me, you're producing a new docu-series. Can you tell us about it?
You know, I'm at a point now in my life where I do the acting that I do. I would rather do it live on stage. I still do television and film, but the thing that is passionate for me is being on stage. And if I'm going to be, doing something with television or film, I'd rather be behind the camera. These days, I'd rather create things. And I also want to do something that means something at this point in my life. Well, I have always had this passion for the Native American way of life. I've been a fan of it since I was in high school. I don't know why.
Introduced you to it? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I started reading some books about the Indian way of life, Native American way of life, and it all made sense to me how they considered the earth their mother, and they would never do anything to destroy their mother's bosom, like go in and mine things and to take oil out and things like that. The sky and the air was the father, and it's all spiritual and connected, and everything is connected. The animals, there's no waste with animals. You don't kill a bunch of buffalo and then leave them there to rot. You use every single piece of the buffalo, and you are grateful for what you have. They were the original conservationists of the world, and all indigenous people all over the world are like that. If you go back to it, well, I discovered something a few years ago that there is a crisis going on in the Native American, Native American, North American natives, and it's called Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of missing and murdered indigenous women who have either been discovered dead or are missing, and nobody knows about it. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? Why is this going on? And when I start to explain what's happening on some of these reservations and stuff, it starts to you start to understand how this can happen. And it's a docuseries on taking the cases and exploring them to show this person was an actual person and had a life, and we're trying to get closure for the families for some of these girls who have been murdered or are still missing, to this day. Plus, we're also going to we're doing an offshoot of it, and because now all of the boarding schools with the Indigenous kids have been found, all of these mass graves with the Indigenous kids. So we're doing an offshoot of that with that in conjunction with it. And we were going like crazy before the lockdown hit, and now that things are being lifted, we're now partnering with a Native American production company to be a part of it, and we have several networks that are interested, at this point. So things are starting to build with it, and that's what it's all about.
Fascinating. Sounds fascinating.
It's called Women
and Tragic.
And tragic. It is. It's very sad, but I think people need to know about what's going on, and these women who have been murdered and are missing need a voice. And some of these families could use closure with it all. It's called Women Erased, the show.
Thank you for being their voice. I mean,
thank you.
And
thank you.
You're right about, being able to use your, name to educate people about this, because, it is important to do something when you have the opportunity to do it, and you're
and I'm getting my acting, passion still satisfied by doing a lot of stage these days. In fact, you were supposed to be
in Dallas, right?
I was supposed to be in Dallas as we're speaking right now, but the mandates that Actors Equity had didn't work with this venue that we were going to be I was on tour with the show that I'm doing right now. It's called Middletown. It's a beautiful little play, absolutely beautiful little play about two couples who meet at their first the first day of kindergarten for their children, and they end up becoming best friends and have dinner for the next 40 years every Friday night. And it's about them aging and their kids growing up and life happening to these two couples for 40 years. It's a beautiful,
that is a great premise. I could see that as a show as well, or a movie.
Yeah, it's just beautifully written. And
who wrote it?
His name is Dan Clancy, not Tom Clancy. Dan Clancy, and it's just so beautifully written. We are actually going to be that again. Actors Equity couldn't figure out how to get vaccinated and unvaccinated people on stage at the same time and stuff. But now there are certain mandates that they came up with and protocols that the unvaccinated people have to go through. And now we can go back out. We are literally going back out with it starting in Miami in November.
Right.
We will be in Miami.
You'll be traveling.
Yes.
You'll be traveling with the show?
Yeah. The next city will be Dallas after that. And they're now starting to put the tour together, but still, we do have to get over this COVID hump.
We really do. Everyone needs to get vaccinated and stay safe. Are you coming to the East, to New York or New Jersey?
We probably will be, but I'll tell you who will be coming East is my sons.
I was going to ask about Dylan and Zach.
If you want to see other Zmeds, you can see my sons actually in the Northeast if you want. They're there a lot. They are musicians.
Tell us about the Zmed brothers, please.
Yeah, the acorn doesn't fall very far from the tree, and all they became musicians, and God bless them, they're actually talented. So, and they're actually making a living, at being musicians. There's a saying, what's worse than being an actor? And that's a musician in terms of making a living, because it's tough to make a living as an actor, and it's tough to make a living as a musician. And they're doing extremely well. They started out in LA being an indie rock band. And actually, they had reviews like saying, this is the best indie rock band we have in LA. But they weren't making any money doing it. Nothing was happening. There are thousands of rock bands in LA, and the gigs are, and they would do over 200 gigs a year in LA, and they'd make nothing each night. So they decided to do this tribute show, and it really caught on like wildfire. And they now have a tribute show to the Everly Brothers. And the reason it's magical is because they have the voices for it. That brother duo was unique in itself because you can't. Only siblings can blend like that, many times, and they have that blend in harmonies and stuff. So they actually were booked for quite a long time, and then of course the lockdown hit, and we went through all that tough time. But they're now coming back, and venues are opening, and they're going to some of the first venues that are opening, and in fact they are going to be in the Northeast in November themselves, October and November. I don't know specifically the areas right now, but to look for the Everly Brothers experience. It's called the Everly Brothers Experience.
I'm going to put it up.
And you can see them on YouTube
right?
too. The Zmed Brothers, Everly Brothers Experience. Yeah.
I'm putting it up right now, right there for them.
Oh, cool.
So just like we talked about earlier, your dad coming to see you play Danny Zuko.
Yeah.
What was it like seeing them for the first time on stage? Dylan and Zach.
Oh, look, I still get tears when I see them harmonizing. They've always been best friends. They literally grew up backstage on national tours or on Broadway. So the cast and the crew became their aunts and uncles. And I would be doing something on stage, and I'd look in the pit, and there's one of them sitting next to the musical, next to the musical director. I'd look off stage. There's another one just goofing off, whatever, with one of the cast members and stuff. So to see them actually put this thing together and harmonizing the way they do, it's heavenly. It's magical to see it. And I get tears, honestly, every time I see them. In fact, I sang, there's a theater in North Hollywood, and they grew up about a mile away from this theater, the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood, and they opened their season. They reopened the El Portal, and they asked for my sons Zach and Dylan to come back and be the opening show for their new season, and it was Father's Day, and I went up on stage and I sang a song with them, and that was pretty much. That's one of those moments.
Yeah, that's like a full circle right there.
Yeah, it really was quite magical for me.
Last question before I let you go. What's the best piece of advice you gave them about this business that they?
You know what? They pretty much got what I taught them by osmosis. And they said that on stage, but they also, honestly, it's the life that I led. They say, my dad taught us this. My dad taught me that. My dad taught me that. And I it's the same thing that my manager gave me. And I said, don't believe your own publicity. You're only, just do your job. And just do your job, and don't believe your own publicity.
That's a great way to.
Don't let it go to your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just humble. Just be humble.
You're still doing what you're doing, Mr. Zmed. That's why you're doing it.
Thanks.
Well, I hope Middletown does come this way. It sounds amazing. I would love.
It will eventually. It's a beautiful little play, and even if it doesn't come, I mean, I'm with the original cast and stuff, but there are going to be versions of Middletown being done a lot in the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for
messages. One of the great messages of of Middletown, and it's so apropos for right now, is if you want a friend, you have to be a friend, and that's what the whole play is about, and that's what life is like for us right now in lockdown and whatever. We have to be friends to each other.
I couldn't think of a better way to end this. Thank you so much for spending.
Thank you, Alan. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you, and Take care of those knees. Make sure they're. I hope to meet you in person one of these days.
I'm the $6 billion man now. So
you are. I thought I was with 2 hips. You have a hip and 2 knees. You beat me.
I still have 2 shoulders to do.
Oh, I hurt mine, so I don't know what's happening next. But take care of yourself and have a great Labor Day weekend.
You too. My pleasure.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching today. Thank you, Adrian Zmed, for being here. I hope you all have a safe and happy Labor Day weekend. I am going to take the week off and spend it at the beach with my husband and my sister and her husband. And I will see you the week of September 13th. I will return then. Have a great weekend, everybody. And thank you, as always, for watching The Locker Room.